We'll call this February meeting of the PZA to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Olthoff.
Present.
Mr. Stauffenberg. Mr. Tripp.
Present.
Mr. Washington. Mr. Tholen. Ms. Polk. Mr. Mulcahy.
Present.
Mr. Hildebrand. Mr. Einfeld. Mr. Payton.
Present.
Ms. Peters.
Present.
Mr. Ritter. Mr. Kinzinger.
Present.
Mr. Fairfield.
Present.
Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Lear. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Public comment, there is none, I believe. All right. Approval of minutes of December 20, you've received those. Is there a motion to approve? Mr. Payton, second by Mr. Kinzinger. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carried. The building report.
In your packets, you should have the monthly building report for December of 2017 and January 2018. The report for December was 1 new home, issued 35 total permits, and brought in revenue of $20,226.50. $12,322.50 of that was from CSL Bearing, 1 permit. For January, we had 1 new home, brought in only 13 permits, and revenue of $7,266. Comparatively to 2016, or excuse me, January 2017, a year before, we brought in 29 permits, but a total fees of $8,510. So it seems low, but for the month of January, it's right in line.
Any questions? Motion to approve. Mr. Tripp, second by Ms. Peters. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Stormwater.
I'm required to ask if there are any stormwater or MS4 program issues that you would like to discuss.
Yes, we don't seem to be doing very well in Kankakee County.
That's flooding, not storm. There's a difference.
It's stormwater, isn't it?
Yes, but if it doesn't have a current, it's stormwater. If it has a current, it's flooding.
Oh, so currently
So what you're really talking about is ponding here. Okay?
Did you have a question, sir?
It's more of a comment, I guess. It came up now, so I'll bring it up. I received a message from the sheriff. They have sandbags available for the public, and they're out there. You know, I think the guests out of Justice Way are bagging up some sand. So if people ask where can, we got flood water, they can have some bags, go out there and pick them up. So
Has that announcement been made on the radio?
it's on their Facebook page, and they got it to the media. But I thought since actually there are a few people that watch this, so thought I'd mention it if there's people along the river that have some issues. It's probably not for ponding water; it's more for flood waters, I would imagine.
Correct, although you could use the sand. They would be helpful, and they are available.
Okay.
We haven't had an event of this size for quite a while.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Expanding on that, if you know of someone who is in need of assistance, the sheriff's office is the place to call, not the planning department. We do not have sandbags. Okay. Secondly, our inspectors will be out monitoring the situation because we get involved after the flood and assess damages. They're going to start doing that tomorrow. My understanding, the river's going to crest somewhere around 7.5 feet. Anything over 5 feet is flood stage, and the highest the river has ever been was 10.5 feet. So we are getting very close to we're certainly into the 100-year flood stages.
The amazing thing is that we don't have ice jams.
No.
Yeah.
That would have really, with this event with an ice jam would have been something
Yes,
else.
the ground is frozen, so it's not soaking up the water. It's going straight into the channels, and that's causing a lot of the problem.
Highway.
Well, 4552
There
is
are-
closed at Mantino.
Highway Department.
Yeah. Right.
As of last night, Eagle Island Road was closed. Route 45 between Mantino and Wilmington, or Peatone, was closed. Route 102 was closed east of Wilmington. Some of the county highways at the northern border, like 11,000, 12,000 north, were closed. And parts of Vincennes Trail and County Highway 13 was closed.
Okay. Any discussion on the stormwater? No, okay. Kankakee County Board of Examiners and Appeals presentation.
Can you switch me over, Diane? You've seen this presentation before, but it came up at another committee meeting recently about the Board of Examiners and how they're made up and what they do. So I was told to do this again, so we are going to do that. Maybe. You were nicely asked. Yes. I'm sorry. Nicely asked. And something is wrong with. Oh. Let's try this slideshow from beginning. Or not. Yeah, we'll try that. There we go. Board of Examiners. Board of Examiners is a recommended body appointed by the county board. They recommend amendments to the county's building code. They are also the final decision-making body and hear appeals. So if a contractor or a homeowner, someone does not agree with our interpretation of the codes, they can have their appeal heard by the Board of Examiners. And they review decisions made by the county planning department as well. Those are their three main functions. Like I said, they're appointed by the county board. They are a 6-member board. There's an electrician, a plumber, a civil engineer, an architect, a residential contractor, and a commercial contractor. All of these became vacant and up for renewal about 6 months ago. Currently, we have 2 positions filled. The civil engineer and the architect will be Dave Tyson and Jeff Jarvis. And we have applications that we've received in the last week. Greg Outson for an electrician, Bill Bakowitz for a plumber, who is also an HVAC technician. Bill Warburton was on the board before, and he's finally reapplied for residential contractor. And Bob Bedell has indicated that he will be applying for the commercial contractor, but that's the only one we have not received yet. Their terms are for 3 years, but they remain in place until replaced. And replacement members must be from the disciplines listed. The main reason for the discussion is the issue as to whether we should have an HVAC person specifically on the Board of Examiners. As you can see, we have 6 different disciplines there, and some of them are meant to cover all trades, such as the residential contractor and the commercial contractor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman
One of the reasons that we did this is because Pat McConnell was the one who was bringing this up really over the course of a couple of years. Because his assertion is, and I agree, HVAC is an important discipline as far as residential commercial contractors. Those could be, as Dell had mentioned in the past, HVAC contractors. But Pat went on to, at the last meeting, I can't remember which one it was, it might have been executive committee, to say, is that where it was? About there are 3 permits you have to pull, I believe, and HVAC was one of those. Am I correct in that, how that was presented? It was a special discipline that we should have a separate spot for. And I wished he was here because that's one of the reasons we...
Not permits. I mean, we pull permits for a lot of different things. If you're talking about licensing,
Okay.
plumbers must be licensed, roofers must be licensed, and alarm installers must be licensed. Those are the only 3 disciplines that must be licensed.
Okay.
HVAC is not one of them.
Because we wanted to at
correct,
least give him... Okay. We want to give Pat his day in court, so to speak, and, kind of vet this. Do we need to add HVAC as a separate, and I think that's more the committee's decision than that could recommend to executive to add it or not, as the case may be. I'm completely open on the subject.
And either way is fine, but I have a few more slides to kind of fill you in on why that may not be a good idea or why it may be. So.
Okay. Yeah.
And the main member composition. The board is meant to be a general representation of all trades and disciplines. That's it. And a smaller board makes it easier to maneuver. It's hard to get consensus out of 30 people. But if we had a representative from every trade that board could swell to 30 people. They're all listed, all the different trades are listed there in the middle. Carpenters, concrete, damp proofing, drywall, pipe fitters, alarm systems, sewer and septic, well drillers. So if you open the door to another one specifically, how do you tell the rest of these no? And I would like to keep the board as small as possible so that we can actually get work done. I have no problem putting another one on, but just worried about the precedents we may be setting by doing so. That's why we have the general residential and commercial contractors to cover all of the rest of these. Now, there's nothing, and I think that's my next slide. Oh, no, it's on here. Might as well get to it now, though. There's nothing that prevents any of these trades from attending the meetings and participating. They just don't get a vote. That's the only real difference. And in all the years the Board of Examiners has existed, nobody but the members has showed up. But if anybody has a specific concern, they can certainly come to any of the meetings and discuss it. So there is representation there. Officers, there's a chairman. Dave Tyson is the current chairman, and the secretary is the supervisor of building and zoning, which is Steve Marion in the back of the room. Meetings. The rules of procedure say they meet monthly, but there is just simply not enough activity to warrant that. Generally, they meet about once a year. Their biggest activity is every 2 to 3 years when we're updating the codes. Then they meet fairly regularly. Then they stop meeting till the next set of codes need to be updated. So it's not a very busy committee. They don't do a lot. But it is an important committee. They are making the decisions on what codes the county should follow. So if you ever look at our building codes, you'll see that there's things, we generally adopt the International Building Code with changes, and those changes are what comes out of the Board of Examiners. And that's what I have, yeah.
So I want to make sure I heard correctly. You said there's those 30 different disciplines that would be covered there. And up to, is that what the general contractor was supposed to cover, was all the other?
Yes.
So, okay, that's all.
That's what those are meant to cover.
Okay.
Because residential contractor isn't really a trade. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're meant to cover all the other trades. And that's how it was originally set up. Doesn't mean you can't add a trade to it. I'm just kind of warning you about the precedents you might be setting by doing so.
That's it?
That's what I had. So
Okay. Any questions?
there's more for information.
All right.
The board can decide whatever it'd like to do.
Going on to the appointment of Greg Outson to Board of Examiners and Appeals. Is there a motion? By Ms. Peters, seconded by Mr. Kinzinger. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Plumbing inspector.
Okay, this came up Thursday, and I told them I would run it by the board and see how you all felt about this. On Thursday, let's get some background here. Currently, we have an agreement with Mike Magruder that was reached in 2014 to perform all of our plumbing inspections for the county at a rate of $200 per month stipend and $50 per inspection. And that has been working well since 2014. On Thursday, he came into my office with a new agreement of $225 per month and $60 per inspection. And says that he cannot do it any longer if he doesn't get the increase. On average, we spend between $11,000 and $12,000 a year for plumbing inspections. The proposed agreement would add another $2,200 roughly. We can never tell exactly how many inspections we'll have a year. About $2,200 a year to that amount. I do have $16,000 set aside in the 2018 budget for it, so we can absorb the increase in our budget. Our plumbing inspector must be a licensed plumber. So we can't just pick anybody and send them out there. We do have to have a licensed plumber for that, and I do not have one on staff. We have not had one on staff for a very long time. And I don't believe we could get one for the $14,000 a year we're paying Mike.
Mr. Wheeler, do you have a motion?
I'd make the motion since, what'd you say, 2014?
Yes,
And what was it before 2014?
that's when he started. Prior to that, I think we did have somebody on
You had
staff.
somebody in-house.
Yes.
I think the cost is the right cost. I think I'd make the motion to accept and to change it to 225 and, what was it, 60?
$60 an
60 per,
inspection.
yeah.
There'll be an agreement. I've got to send that. I'm basically asking for permission to move forward with it so I can get the agreement to the state's attorney's office and your signature on it once it's approved.
Okay, so that's the motion then.
That's the motion. Ms. Peters, you second it?
No.
Oh, no. Who seconded it? Mr. Kinsey, or George? Mr. Washington seconds. Now discussion. Ms. Peters.
We have similar agreements with other people who do inspections
No, our other inspectors are on staff.
on staff. Okay.
Yes.
And then,
It's difficult to get a licensed plumber on staff. Generally, our licensed plumbers on staff in the past have been retired plumbers that just wanted something to do.
is there a possibility
We
we
don't
could?
pay enough. to
It's
hire
been
a
4
full-time
years.
plumber.
Maybe there's somebody out there that would want to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mr. Tripp.
Just asking.
How many inspections a month do you have?
For plumbing,
Yeah,
we did 179 inspections last year
total?
total.
Not broken down into per month?
I don't have a per month.
Divided by
number.
12.
Yeah, I can divide that by 12, so.
Mr. Kinzinger, did you have a comment?
Yes. When's the last time that we approached or let somebody know there was a plumbing inspection, a licensed plumber inspection job available? There's a lot of plumbers that are licensed in our county, and if nobody knows about the position, how did we end up with just one choice? I'm certainly thinking this is a job that I don't like being put under the gun for anything, and usually you don't have to be. So I'm questioning, has this been advertised? Have we checked and you can't find a licensed plumber?
I have no idea what they did in 2014 when Mike came on board. I can tell you we have not advertised anything. Currently, this occurred on Thursday. And since I cannot be without a licensed plumber, I'm immediately put it on this agenda.
Mr. Fairfield?
How much of availability is he? Is he easy to get in contact with and
Yes.
to do the
Yes,
job?
we've had no problems. Anytime we call him, he goes out and takes a look. He comes into the office. He's very easy to work with. And these numbers are not unreasonable. You know, he uses his own vehicle, his own gas to get out to these places. And of course, all those prices have gone up since 2014, so.
Mr. Wheeler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just the only main reason, well, really the real reason that I put the motion out there is if you look at the cost of bringing someone in here part-time to do this, you're paying them whether we have inspections or not. And this is an at-will position, almost as needed. We could almost predict what we're going to do in a year unless we have a housing boom in the rural part of the counties, and then that'll probably get absorbed into a municipality at some point anyway. So, and if you go full time, then you got benefits and IMRF and the whole deal. It's 3 times that cost. So
Other than the
I think
small
this is
monthly
the most
payment,
cost-effective model that we could go by.
if we have no inspections, he doesn't get paid.
Right.
Mr.
It's a pretty good
Mulcahy?
deal for us.
He does.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What do we charge the end user for these inspections?
That's part of the building permit.
It's part of the permit? Okay, and that depends on how
Depends on what they're doing.
in-depth that is. Okay. But we do get our money back.
Yes. Yes, it's paid for out of building permit fees.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Olthoff?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Mulcahy?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Ms. Peters? Mr. Kinzinger? Mr. Fairfield? Mr. Wheeler? Motion carried.
Okay. Going on to planning, surplus of 2 vehicles.
Okay, I think it was last month, we received 2 Tahoes from the sheriff, which we are extremely grateful for, and we appreciate that very much. And the 2 vehicles that is replacing are the 2 maroon brown colored vehicles on the right up on the screen. We will be keeping the 2 gray Impalas. We will be getting rid of the 2 maroon Impalas. Just let you know that little picture in the corner is part of the frame on the one above it. That's why it needs to go.
So that surplus also, we're gonna let those taxis go?
We are going to put that in the trunk, and it's going to be a gift to somebody. We are currently taking things off of them for the gray cars. This morning we moved a battery over because we had a new battery in one of those, and some windshield wipers and some other things before we let them go. But those are the 2 that are leaving, so I'm asking for permission to dispose of those 2 vehicles. There's our 2 new Tahoes. They're running pretty good. Got a few other things though. Just to let you know, the Tahoes did not come without a price tag. Our budget for it says 2017, I'm sorry. It should be 2018 for vehicle repairs is $2,000. By the time we took care of plate title transfer, they both needed batteries. One needs tires, and we had some ball joint issues that had to be done right away. We are now, which all totaled $3,028, we are in the negative for $1,000 for the year already, and it's only February. So just wanted to let you know that. We appreciate the vehicles. They are far better, but we did have to spend a little money.
Can we send a bill to the sheriff's department for that?
Probably not, but we will be getting some money back out of these 2 Impalas we're getting rid of. I don't know what that is, but that goes to general funds, so it doesn't really help me much. Yes. In fact, if the sheriff has 2 more, we'd like to replace the other 2 gray cars if he gets around to it. So.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes, sir.
Just, I know it's mildly over budget on the repair cost, but I mean, the price of the new would, I mean, far exceed that. We're talking $70,000-$80,000.
We couldn't buy 2 new vehicles for that.
No.
Not even close. So.
Mileage is about the same.
I can't remember what these were.
Yeah, the mileage on them are about
Yeah.
the same, but they are in far better condition.
Did anybody check for rust?
They seem very well, yeah.
Oh,
A few
okay.
dents and dings. They are old police cars, but they've got bigger motors. They're stronger, and I had the pleasure of riding up a dirt path in Pembroke with one of them. We had never got through there with the Impala, so that was.
So we're saving on towing charges, is what you're saying?
That is possible, yes. I think in the long run, it will be better for the office. So.
Okay. Motion to approve selling of the vehicles by Mr. Washington, seconded by Mr. Fairfield. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion opposed? Motion carried. Zoning activity.
Every year about this time, I let you know what we did last year for zoning and present you with the new zoning map. So that's what we're going to do now. Zoning activity in 2017. We had 10 zoning cases. 4 of them were rezonings. 1 of those was A1 to C2, and 3 of them were A1 to A2 agriculture. 3 of them were special use permits, 1 for a campground, 1 for a junkyard, and 1 of those was withdrawn, was for a B&B, so you never seen that one. We issued 5 variances on 3 separate cases. There were no text amendments, and there was 19 farmstead exemptions. Kind of a light year for zoning. So every year, we adopted our first zoning map on March 21st of 1967, along with our zoning ordinance. And that was revised in 1971 and again in 1996. Since we've had digital mapping capabilities around 2000. We have published a new map every year like our ordinance says we should, and we've asked the county board to re-adopt it every year to keep it legal and up to date. According to the state statute, until the zoning change appears on the map, it is not an official change. So there's the 2018 zoning map, which reflects those cases that I talked about. And we're asking that that be recommended for approval by the full county board.
Is there a motion to approve and send on? Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Payton, any discussion? Mr. Kinzinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the changes, this map reflects the changes we made in 2017.
Those 10 cases and those 19 farmstead exemptions are on this.
That's the
map.
only changes.
That's the only changes.
Thank you.
Any others? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
On another note on that, just to let you know, we had 10 cases last year. We will be having 13 cases next month for zoning. So we're off to a great start in 2018. We took in, I think it was 10,000 in fees 2 weeks ago and 25,000 in fees yesterday.
Okay, going on to historic preservation.
Flood mitigation.
Oh, I'd rather go on to flood mitigation assistance program.
It's not the same kind of flooding.
Okay.
This is from the 2015 flood. I just wanted to give you guys a little update on it. We had a home in Aroma Township that was severely damaged in the 2015 flood. And to raise it or elevate it, or to elevate it had a price tag of $70,000 plus, and the FEMA would only give $30,000 for that. So the next step was to apply for a grant for buyout, and I just wanted to announce that we have been approved for that grant of $183,000, $183,258 to purchase that house, demolish it, and the county will end up owning the lot once we're done. That's been approved. We will be starting that process in the next month or so.
Is that the one on the curve in the river or not?
It is located at the intersection of I-57 and the river.
Oh.
That's about the most detail I can give you because of privacy issues. I can't really give you specific addresses or ownership information.
All right. There's
No motion needed.
No
It was
motion is
just-
needed.
That was just an update.
Any questions on this? Okay, going forward to historic preservation, 2018 CLG grant.
Okay. I will turn this over to Michelle and Ms. Hinton for that.
Good morning.
Morning.
This is Mardine Hinton. I don't know if everybody's aware. She's our chair of our Historic Preservation Commission. She's here to help me out. Our first thing we want is our 2018 CLG grant is due in March, and we are asking permission to move forward to apply. We are asking for $10,000 from the state, $10,000 budget. 7,000 state, 3,000 would be our cost. Most of that all of it will probably be in kind, but in the same time, we are asking for community foundation grant, which will help offset any costs that we do incur. The grant will be to do some camp training, which we are hoping to get other communities to come in. I believe we open it up to other historic preservation commissions to do some training on historic preservation. The community development grant will be for $5,000, which will cover our in-kind services, or the $3,000, depending on because there will be some costs that we will have to do a venue, supply them with some refreshments, handouts, anything like that. So the community foundation grant will work in connection with that. So we're asking permission to apply for both grants.
there a motion? Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Mulcahy. Any discussion? Mr. Kinzinger.
Yeah, I'm new to all this. What is the ultimate purpose? You want this grant, what is the purpose? Maybe you can summarize in a couple sentences. What are we trying to accomplish in the county?
Okay, since we were established in 2007, we were all volunteers off the street. We didn't know a whole lot about preservation, except that we liked, and we were interested. The CAMP program is specifically for commissioners. We have some that go to training programs throughout the state. We have others that have never gone. And so there was 4 of us that went to one in Plainfield last summer, and the 2 new commissioners at that point thought it was so good that they wanted to host one here. And so the $7,000 is what the CAMP program charges for us to host it. It is for commissioner training.
Go ahead.
I'm a builder, developer. How does this help me or hurt me?
Well, if we learn how to landmark more properties, we only have 4 landmarks right now in the county. But if we landmark more, then those properties, if they want to be fixed up in any way, then they're going to hire you. What we want to do is save the character of our community. We don't want those buildings torn down. So when people decide to save a building, they're going to hire you to fix it. Does that make sense?
Yes, I'm not certain some buildings shouldn't be torn down. I guess we're on different sides of this.
Well, that's another issue.
Yeah, that's a whole new, thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Any others? So basically, if all the grants come in, there's no cost?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Mulcahy is smiling.
And if
Mr.
the grants
Washington.
don't come in, we're not doing it. Is that-
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong. These training sessions are to give the commissioners greater knowledge of how to approach the historic places that you're looking at in order to try and save them, and also to try and maintain them and fix them.
Yes, but there's so much more that we need to learn, and especially if we have a landmark property, they need to fill out a certificate of appropriateness for the exterior, so that if we have a big old Queen Anne house and they want to paint it pink, we can stop that. Or if they want to put on a real contemporary, or if they want to put a real contemporary porch on that house that doesn't fit the architecture.
It has to conform to the architecture.
Yes, it has to conform to certain,
the architecture of the time.
To the Secretary of Interior standards.
Okay, thank you.
Could you tell us what the 4 that are designated?
Yes, it's the county courthouse,
Yes.
the Limestone Hawkins Cemetery, the Perry Farm, and the Laterno House in Bourbonnais.
Wow.
And we have 2 in progress.
Not the Bradley House.
The Bradley House is on the National Register, but it is not a county landmark. We have several National Register landmarks in the county, but we deal with, we help with National Register applications, but our main goal right now is county landmarks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. I have one more request. Okay. What we would like to do is request that the county board certify our historic preservation ordinance for the purpose of property tax assessment freeze. Now, the property tax assessment freeze is already, the people that are on the National Register are already eligible for that. It's a freeze when they're going to do 25% of the value of their house. They can have their if they fill out a lot of paperwork with the state, they can have their property tax frozen for 8 years. And then 4 years after that, it will return to the value that it has become. It freezes where it's at today before work starts. Does that make sense? The National Register houses, structures, sites, they're all already eligible and they're using it. So we have 4 county landmarks. No one on those county landmarks is going to ask for this freeze because you have to live in the house. You have to, if it's a apartment, you still have, like 6 units, you still have, the owner has to live in one of those units to get the freeze. Or if it's being fixed up, then the person that occupies the house right after the work is done is eligible for the freeze. Okay.
Okay. Any questions? Mr. Kinzinger.
In general, I like these kind of programs because they work. But I am not prepared. I don't know what they're asking of this committee, but I think this should go to a higher level. I don't know if there's any impact to this or not. This is the first time I've heard of it. What's
Well, it will
proper?
go to the county board. Mr. Wheeler.
Yeah, I haven't seen the language either, and at some point the state's attorney's office will see it also. I'm thinking that in principle, like Mr. Kinzinger, I agree with these types of incentives to invest and to create something that may be of a greater value, especially on a commercial purpose. But I don't know the details. So it seems to me that it would probably make sense if we do agree that we want to, in principle, we agree with the process, or at least the end result, that we could recommend it to finance, that would come along to the finance committee to take a look at what the numbers mean, along with the recommendation of the state's attorney's office on the language. And I'm just throwing that out there as a possible solution to move it forward, but still get the information that everybody's going to want to see and get those opinions on. So
We want to make that a motion?
I'll make it.
yeah, let someone else.
Okay. Is there a second by Mr. Payton? Any discussion on that? The is to submit this to the finance committee and get the state's attorney's input. Is that correct?
Correct.
Were we going to recommend it? We could reconsider it. Or we don't want to recommend
We don't even need to recommend. We could just say move it on. We,
Right.
you know, because we don't want to stop it here. I don't think,
No.
but we need more information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you got that? Okay. Any discussion? You've made the motion, or we've got George and Sam, right?
All right.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
So just maybe be prepared for finance committee this month in case they have any questions. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Just a little background. Okay. Thanks.
Going on to transportation, rural transit update.
Jeffrey couldn't be here today, so he asked me to give his rural transit update for February 2018. Letters of interest are sent out every January to start the rural transit application process, and they're sent to various transportation providers in the area, such as Metro, Cardinal Bus. There's several of them. He does have a list on file if you'd like to see it. Show Bus was the only responder. So they will be our provider for the next year. Next step is for IDOT to send out the FY 2019 applications, and hopefully we can have that in place for the March PZA meeting. The intercity bus grant application was approved by IDOT. This is the proposed service that will extend the Moments commuter service to the Greyhound stop in Kankakee in the morning and in the afternoon. There's bus shelters included in the application. Those were also awarded. There'll be one at each end. The exact locations of the shelters have not been determined. There'll be one in Moments and one in Sun River Terrace. We'll be working with both of those municipalities to determine where the bus shelter should be located. The Downstate Operating Assistance Program funds are the local match for the operating cost, and we're counting on the appraisal of the land the bus shelters will be located on is our in-kind match for the grant. Lease and maintenance agreements of those shelters will still need to be worked out with the municipalities. For ridership, second quarter ridership, which is from October 1st to December 1st of 2017. The Moments commuter route had 4,890 rides. The demand response route, which is all the other routes, 4,723 rides for a total of 9,613 rides. We had 6 trip denials during that period of time. And that could be anywhere from the bus was full, or we could not accommodate the time or location that they wanted to use. On an up note, the total number of rides for the second quarter is 42% higher than the second quarter of 2016. That's a huge jump. And in fact, the total ridership for the first half, which is the first and second quarters, is up 32% from 2016. We believe that this may be because of more medical trip or Medicaid trips and possibly more work trips, or the possibility that there are fewer private transportation providers in the county. We are looking into that to try to determine why we had such a jump. And that's what I have for a report.
Any questions, Mr. Payton?
Yes, sir. What date do you have for estimation that those 2 shelters would be completed?
I do not. We are just getting started. We haven't really negotiated with the municipalities yet.
Okay.
The grant was just approved.
Okay.
So they'll be, in the next few months, there'll be meetings. And
Right.
we'll get
Thank
moving
you.
on that.
Any others? Going on, any old business? Any new business? Motion to adjourn and be in order. Ms. Peters, seconded by Mr. Mulcahy. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carried.